Okay, hi everyone. It's Paul Putman here. I'm CEO of Dynemark, and today I'd like to welcome you to Dynemark's first set of webinars introducing our new portfolio of intelligence services. As always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to attend. The webinar will take approximately 20 minutes, and at the end of the webinar, hopefully, you will be able to understand why we've developed the new intelligence services, how they work, a practical demonstration of the services in operation, and really why the service can help you become more targeted and drive intelligence into your marketing database or other marketing tools that you use. So let me just move on to slide 1. Hopefully, here we go. So, introduction to our intelligent cloud services. So I think one of the key things to just pick out before we actually go into the detail of the webinar is essentially times have changed, and adoption of mobile is becoming very critical to most companies' strategies. In fact, some of our customers, their key strategy is actually leveraging mobile. And this is predominantly because the way user behavior has changed so massively with the growth of smartphones. There's a few stats here to consider, but essentially, people want information fast and small bite-sized chunks. Elongated emails and things like that just aren't as effective when accessing or trying to deliver a message to a mobile audience. People's behaviors have changed, and really that has or is creating a challenge for businesses, because essentially what then businesses need to do is kind of replace the kind of traditional print and to some extent email communications to a mobile-centric sort of communication channel. However, because of that, it causes a few problems because it loses some of the key things that people have grown very accustomed to in the original channels, say for email, where things are very traceable, you can track them, and like all businesses, if you spend money, you need to justify that money and you need to show an ROI on that. And in mobile, that's become a bit of a black art because essentially finding that traceability or tracking that traceability is quite a difficult thing to do, purely and most of all because of the size of the message that you need to deliver. And also it's the speed of the change, and it's incredibly hard for companies to manage the speed of that change. A year ago our behavior was different to what it is today. 2-3 years ago, some of the things that we talk about and we see commonplace today simply don't exist, and for businesses it's very difficult to keep up with that change. So how has Dynemark addressed this change? Well, we kind of figured out pretty much 18 months ago, actually, when I joined, that we needed to be more intelligent about how people needed to use mobile communications. And, our current speciality is SMS, so we're going to focus on that, but that's not to say in the future we're not looking at other technologies as well. But one of the things that we had to fix first is bringing that historical traceability and trackability for analytics to generate ROI into SMS. As a company, being a provider of just sending and receiving text just isn't enough. This should be the sort of the standard. You should have a robust platform and be able to do those things. But what companies need to have is more value. So when they're making the spend on SMSs or messaging or any kind of mobile interaction, they can justify the money they're spending and get more value out of it. And that's really allowed us to change the goal of the company. So that goal is about engaging more proactively with your mobile audience, providing that profiling, analytics and behavior that allows people to have targeted messaging. And why is targeted messaging important? Well, it's important because less is more. It's far better to send less out that's more targeted to get a better ROI than it is to simply push out vast numbers. And Dynemark's a bit unique in the market, and as we move forward, that's going to become more and more evident with our new intelligence services, where we're kind of giving businesses the tools to send out less, but get more value out of it, against the competitive landscape where most people are just saying, look, how do you send out more? And Dynemark realizes that that's not a strategy for the long term when dealing with mobile audience, because that communication is precious and it needs to be right. So that kind of hopefully gives you an understanding of the sort of introduction to the premise behind our intelligence services. Specifically now, let's look at the first part of our portfolio, which is the URL lead tracking. And this is the first service that we are launching or have launched. And why did we do it? Well, the first thing was this disparity between email and SMS in terms of tracking capabilities. With an email, you can put in your URL, it creates a unique ID, you can track it, you can see what people do, you can manage click-throughs. But within SMS, you simply couldn't do that. And that's mostly because of the space required. If you look at the URL that's actually underneath the vanity URL within an email, the URLs that they actually put in are between 90 and up to 200 characters long to be able to track that. Now that just simply doesn't work with an SMS. You wouldn't send 2 SMSs or a concatenated SMS with just one link in it. Customers simply would ignore it or wonder what the heck you're doing. So it kind of doesn't work. So people use things like Bitly technology to be able to shorten stuff. Problem is, it only gives a very high level view. So it gives some analytics, but it's difficult to manage. So essentially, it's been difficult to get that kind of ability within SMS. Ultimately, if you're going to send something out, that information is not relevant unless you've got detailed reporting. And then we go for being able to track that down to each mobile number, so you get a unique feeling around and information around each user and what they're doing. And this process should be automatic. My past is messaging intelligence and doing all sorts of good things with email, and it's about making sure all of this stuff is simple to be able to do. Some of the other key things, essentially the top level is free service, just like something like Bitly. So you can get all the normal stuff for free like you would do with Bitly, but there's some additional stuff that we're going to talk about that makes it a little bit special. And ultimately, by going this, it does shorten it, and it should give you a little bit of extra space in your message, or, as we'll come on to, give you the ability to be able to put something at the end of your message to make sure you start building up this intelligence and data about your users. So, how does it work? Well, like all good things, it should be simple. So, the way that it works is very simple. As a message is passed through our system, and this is important to understand, this is from either an API or one of our SaaS tools that we provide, say Message Manager or Campaign Manager. And the system works at a platform level. It's not done within the software application that you use locally. It's done at the platform. And that means that we can deliver and design to work across all of the engagement channels that we have with our customers. So essentially, you create the message just like you would normally do. You don't have to worry about changing or finding a shortening device or anything like that. You just simply put in your normal URL that you would do. And that allows system-generated URLs to be put in place as well. It understands that. It scans the message. It understands that there's a URL in it, and it replaces that URL with a shortened URL. It then adds a unique ID to the end of that shortened URL that tracks it down to the mobile number. We've also put in an automated malware check. This is to protect you and to protect the consumers that receive that. Obviously, we don't want to be putting click-throughs that contain malware. And essentially, what that allows is that every URL is traceable. The message is then just sent out as normal for the customer to receive, click on the information, do the click-through, drive it to your website. You can also understand that our URL is never going to be any longer than 21 characters, and we automatically recalculate the cost of a message. So even if your normal URL was longer, than that, and it looked like 2 messages that you'd have to use, it actually recalculates it down to 1 message and advises you of that. So if you can understand, it's a very, very simple system. Switch it on, it works, it scans it, it replaces it, and it means that you do not have to do any of the heavy lifting traditionally that you have to do to try and fit URLs or track, well, you couldn't track URLs within mobile down to a mobile number. So again, activation, we're going to look at that a little bit easier, but as everything with Dynemark now, it's all driven through the portal. We're going to walk through that live in a moment. You simply select it, and any URL with a prefix HTTP or HTTPS will be replaced. Ultimately, though, some people, I don't know why they would, but some people may not want to track a URL, so there's also a capability of being able to not track it, and we'll show you how that's done. And then essentially you'll get access to all the information and the summary reporting, and then you'll get some unique reporting around individual pieces. What's interesting, if you are using this in conjunction with one of our tools, say for instance Campaign Manager, one of the great things about this is that it will also assign, it's a bit techie here, it assigns a batch number to your campaign, and that batch links to the URL, which means that you can actually understand from each campaign what the responses are and drill down, even if you're using the same URL. So, for instance, you may well be sending multiple campaigns, or we might, going with Dynemark.com, but that historically you'd never know how to track each campaign because they're all pointing to the same place. With ours, it does do that because it uses the campaign ID to understand how that's linked to a URL that you may well use for multiple different campaigns. So I think the best thing to do now at this point is to give you an idea and actually show you how to do all this stuff. Excuse the sound of page turning if you can hear that. So we'll go on to the tracking demonstration. So I've just got to come out of PowerPoint for a moment. Let's launch the Cloud Portal. So hopefully you can all see our Cloud Portal. It's the webinar demonstration account. This is your normal view when you log in. So the first thing you would do is simply go into our Cloud Services and choose our Intelligent Cloud Services part. And then from within there you'll see the URL lead tracking, and we go configure. So this is configuring your settings, and so again this will affect any message that is being sent out via API or via any of our SaaS applications. You've got a couple of options, not active, so that's what the default will be if you log in, and then you've got 2 different options: activate URL lead tracking for all URLs, so this will replace everything that comes through, or it will be activate URL lead tracking for marked URLs only. So how this works is that to track a URL, you simply insert an @ sign before it. If you don't insert an @ sign before it, it won't track it. So just to clarify, to track you put an @, not to track you just leave as standard. Today we're going to use the current service state activate URL and lead tracking for marked URLs only, just so I can demonstrate that from a campaign view. So that's it. We've clicked the button and we switched it on. The next thing to do, and today we're going to use Campaign Manager. So let me just go on to Campaign Manager here, and I'm just going to use a campaign that I've done before. So I'm going to go into Campaigns, I'm going to go into the drafts because I preset that one, and we're going to use URL lead tracking demo 1. So let me just go through the process. This is the normal way that we would process and set up a campaign. Just for your information, the Campaign Manager is going to be going through a reskin shortly in the same way Message Manager did. So let's just go to our setup campaign. So first of all, here's our little message in here. Hi, first name, please visit us at. Note, I've put an @ here's our old URL in here. And also you'll notice here I've also got a standard URL in there. Now that's not going to get tracked because the way that we've set it up is only do the URL with an @ sign. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy that now. Yes, I am, sure. Okay, so that's going out from the system now. So if we now go out to back to our presentation to wait whilst that's actually executing and sending out. We're just going to have a look. Oh, there we go. Since this mess I'm on this, let me just briefly go on here. I'm just going to, some of you may well have put your mobile numbers in, so some may well also receive the text, but I'm just going to go and click through on the tracked URL that I've got. Okay, that's the website, all good. So now we're just going to have a look at the key benefits whilst we're compiling some of that data and as people are doing the click-throughs. I think it sits into 3 key areas really: automatic and instant, individually traceability or tracked, and then how that enhances your database. So, you know, the simple point is that it is incredibly simple, and it completely removes that time-consuming manual process that most people have historically had to do when they're either changing or creating unique URLs, putting in bit.ly, using hourly to be able to do this. And it's done in an auditable, automated process. So you can see at every step what you're getting back. So the most important thing is it's automated. The other thing is that it works across whether using APIs for triggered messages from your CRM, SAP systems, other systems, website ordering systems. It just works out of the tin for the APIs, and it also works across the piece for your SaaS applications that you use from us. It's good because it automatically recalculates the cost at a lower message level. And that's just a handy thing, so that's one of the business benefits. But from a marketing perspective, when we look at the individually traceable, you know, it allows you to track every single mobile interaction that you have down to the number, and ultimately that will link into your database in terms of a consumer exactly what they're being able to do and how they're interacting with your messages, so you can build up the profile of you know, who's an engaged customer. You know, another key thing is the browser and the device information. You know, this is good to understand. I think we've kind of got it about 2 pieces here on the same thing in the marketing database, but it understands, you know, what browsers are, what your consumers are. So if you're deploying or investing in web application development for the various operating systems, you can start to build out an understanding of your user universe that you have. And that in itself is an incredibly powerful bit of information. You also get locational information and time to click. And if you're really clever, you'd be tracking that time to click, you know, and understanding, well, I've got an incredibly engaged person, I sent out the message and they clicked through within 20 seconds. That means that I've got an incredibly engaged consumer, and therefore moving forward, you know, they would be a high priority person to target for further messaging. Or just simply to check your operational engagement to see how much people actually are engaging with you. So it's all about, from a marketing database perspective, enhancing that information so you can do retargeting of specific groups with specific messages. You know, if you tie in this understanding your app universe with that, you can then go, okay, well, I know my iPhone audience and I know my Android audience. I thought I should be developing this for iPhone because I thought that most people of my consumers would use iPhone. Actually, 70% of my users are Android, so my focus needs to be on developing my Android device. And the great thing is then, instead of sending them a vanilla message around doing an app download, you can actually then go, please go here and take them specifically to the Android piece. And this information hasn't been that readily available before in the past, and it certainly hasn't been readily available in an automated fashion. So it's about creating that engagement and creating and gathering that data from the system. So that's a kind of one of the key benefits. So it's not just about tracking and seeing the click-through rates, it's about collating the data that can then be used to make decisions around different business issues around engaging your mobile audience. Okay, so hopefully that's reasonably understandable around how this all works. So now let's just go back into the portal to see what happened. So let me go back in, go into there. So this is where last time we looked at how to configure it. Now let's look at reporting. So I'm just going to click on reporting here. I'm going to go into Intelligent Cloud. Right, okay, so here we go. You'll see at the top here is an overall summary of all your engagements across all of your URLs, whether it's campaigns or via APIs. You know, and one of the important points is this total and unique clicks. Unique clicks are down to the individual user. So if you used to use email systems, some email systems had unique clicks. Unfortunately, with the new sort of security systems that are available for email and anti-spam information, often this kind of doesn't give the real information about click-throughs anymore because they have automated systems checking URLs for malware. So you get this kind of false perception of how many have clicked through when actually maybe nobody has. But anyway, with mobile, with SMS, that doesn't happen, obviously. So this gives you your unique view. Maybe sometimes people click a couple of times on the same link. So that's what's important to understand, this unique click-through rate. Now, down here, this is today's piece. You can see this URL lead tracking test here. So it's taken the identifier from the campaign and put it into the identifier here. This is the URL that was shortened as part of that process. So I'm going to go directly into the summary. You can see a little chart here in terms of some overall top-line data, but we want to go into the summary. When we go into this, it does bring up a selection of options, but we'll come on to those in a minute. At the moment, I just want to view the summary. So when we're looking at your click-through summary report, you can see the overall activity that's been done on today's piece. And what we can see here is we can see today's piece here, which is 29th of Jan, and the number of click-throughs. For this one here, this was actually the day before's, but we can see the activity today. So we've had a click-throughs coming through from this. We've also got the information around browsers and devices for you to be able to start understanding how all that works, and obviously all my audience that currently is in the United Kingdom. And then you can also see here the time period and the time to click, so how frequent or how quickly people engaged with the overall click-through. So we've had a good click-through response from our test campaign here. So as you can see, this gives you a very similar information dashboard from what we've that you may well see from Bitly or similar providers like Owly. But the key thing is the next step, which is to click on this bit here, which is the view leads. So this then drill downs. Now I'm just going to view the leads that I've already purchased. Just to let you know, when you do this, there is a charge for viewing the leads, but it is minute. We don't charge for the software like email companies do, that monthly recurring software license to use it, because we believe you should only pay where the system is driving value. And where is the value? The value is actually understanding the click-through or the person at the end of that lead. So when we charge you that, we charge a very, very small amount. And by the time you've actually looked at your reports, the actual percentage relevant to the traditional software that would do that is a minute percentage, maybe 4 or 5% of what you would have normally paid an email service provider for the software to be able to do that. So I'm just going to view the leads here. Let's just wait for this to click. I'm always loving the fact with live demonstrations that should be able to come back. Okay, so now I'm into my unique URL leads. So And obviously this is exportable, so we can export the data here and that'll be exported as CSV, and moving forward you can automate those, export that data on a daily basis by an FTP drop. But essentially, what is the detail? You're getting the mobile number, the date, the date of the click, the time to click, the original URL. You're getting the browser information that start building up your application universe or your user universe in terms of what operating systems they have. You'll also know, sometimes it will say device unknown. You've usually got device unknown in an Android piece because there's so many different Android manufacturers. But the reality is you don't need to know the specific device. You actually need to understand the operating system and the browser that it's operating in. But where we can, we will pick up the device and then the country, and this gives you some information from the purchase date. So essentially what you can see is you've got the ability to be able to view from a summary level for free, and you only then, if you only want to drill down and get the absolute stuff to then export and put into your own marketing database or create your own reports for management purposes, is the only time you go into the unique URL leads piece in here. And then, as I said, you can just press that export data to create a CSV file to download from your portal. So essentially, that is how URL tracking works, and hopefully you can see by that that it's an incredibly simple system to use. It doesn't require anything really. If you think of the time and effort you probably would have went through historically to put all that system in place, it's disappeared. It's done it automatically, and you no longer need to have to worry about any of that. And that pretty much brings us to the end of this quick webinar to launch the new URL services. So I'd always open up for questions now at this point. If anybody's got any questions, wait a couple of seconds for some questions to come through. If any has. Okay, I've got one. To what level will I be able to access location data? At the moment, that location data is only at country level because it's where the IP address is linked to. Around that, you can't get down to town. However, I won't say any more about the new intelligence services, but we're going to solve that for you in the new intelligence services around location. Okay, if someone clicks more than once, will they be recorded separately? This is where it deals with the unique click-throughs at the top and understanding the unique click-throughs. When you go into the detailed reporting, it will duplicate because it is actually on the detailed transaction, but generally it doesn't. And that's where the unique click-throughs are there for. Let's have a look. Right, if I type www. Will it pick it up? No, it will only pick up HTTP or HTTPS URLs. Any more? Can I have data emailed to me? At the moment, it is a manual interaction to download. We've got a new reporting framework going live in a month or so, and within that reporting framework, it will automate reporting to be sent out via email. So not now, because we're trying to get the services out as quickly as we can, but shortly, yes. Just see if there's any other questions coming through. Nope. Okay. Okie dokes. No more questions. So thank you very much for attending today's webinar. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you got a little bit of an understanding, and we will be following up with you to pass this through. One key thing I would say, just to end off the webinar, is that if you've got space within your URL message to use, put in a URL, even if it's just to understand if that consumer interacts with you. It doesn't cost anything to get that report, to get the top right level summary, and at least you'll start to understand how people are interacting with you when you're sending messages through. Clearly, if it's tied into the message, it has more value, but just think about, can I put a URL at the end of it? Can I fit it in? Because if I can start understanding people's click-throughs, I can start understanding how they're engaging, and I can start building out this intelligence about my customers. So that's it. Thank you very much for today's webinar, and I hope you enjoy using it in the future, and we look forward to serving you as a Dynemark customer moving forward as always. Thank you very much for that. Okay, thank you very much.